This is Kal Kat, the Kal Katster. And even though I'm wearing a PBS church shirt, shouldn't matter. This is innocent enough, I guess. This is I'm doing a redo of the upgrade of the Starship Locations commentary thing that I tried to record earlier with the cell phone camera, and it didn't look good. So I came back in here and I decided to do it over again. Yeah, it happens a lot lately. Yeah, Starship Chimera right off the bat. Starship Chimera should be starting. We keep saying it's going to start B-roll, and it doesn't. It's a little hot this week. Probably not today. Likely not today. Tomorrow, B-roll stuff. But yeah, those 22 minutes should be in production at some point in July, in August, and then we can wrap production on the film that has taken Mark's Cards and I since 2012. So it's our version of Boyhood, but with Star Trek people. I've done other things, like the Robotech thing. So yeah, Starship Locations. I have been working on the Starship Locations stories and books and character guide for the release of the online version of the game, the storybooks and whatnot. I have included the Andover Stoner comedy as part of semesters because it was originally and now it is again. It was sort of the stuff we left on the kitchen room floor, cutting room floor, we were going to use because it was diary-like and it was more about peripheral characters, and it turns out that our other stuff later, like the dream stories in Silly Trek, was diary-like with characters. Semesters turned out to be diary-like with characters, and TMS is diary-like with characters. So why did we leave it out? So I put it back. This version is sort of a twisted version of the later semesters stories. It's not technically semesters. It's sort of semesters' other version, like other earlier version of itself, with a sort of O'Neill colony ship heading out into space. Where on the ship they live in the 80s. The semester story takes place on a planet, mainly. A planet from Cillian space, where they reenact events from that ship crew without knowing it, because they were created via the aliens, the cute. And they are the cute, which are like the cute. And they are self-aware and they're completely real in that universe. Yeah, so what they're doing in there is going to make sense in semesters. It's a chance to put the fictional adventures out as a legitimate form, and also so sure, why not? The martial sportiest stuff that's later. This is and then comes the Silly Trek Starship Locations, based on the Star Trek like series Starship Locations. When Chimera comes out, it's going to say Starship Locations presents Chimera, a Star Trek parody, whereas this is going to say, not really directly say that, but indirectly, for many of the characters are like Star Trek people. The Chimera movie is still a Star Trek parody, so it's like this weird sort of, the names are the Star Trek people, but they're little action figures. So it's very obvious who everyone is in the movie. We did not change the names. Thought that was silly to change the names. The production is 2/3 of the way done, if not more. And the third act is basically the act that's left over. You gotta have this good third act. Mark's Cards has not been available to do any filming on it. I am, but he's not. So yeah, in the just putting the Starship Locations out, I wanted to make that as good as possible. The likely publisher will be Google and Amazon, mainly Amazon. You'll be able to get it elsewhere. But some of my earlier stuff will come out first. Blessings Deferred, the grandma novel, will come out first, followed by Distant Destinies Book 1, which are the two that were already published. They will be re-released first, and everything else will follow. And so that's exciting. the meh. So yeah, they will not be out of print very shortly. They are currently, but they will not be. They will be. You'll be able to go on and purchase the books. Also, other exciting Starship Location stuff down the pike or pipe also include a sort of exploring sci-fi tropes and things show, similar to what I did with the stars and Wikipedia pages and planets and things like that 4 years ago. This one would be more about different aspects of sci-fi tropes and things, such as mind reading and shapeshifters and werewolves and whatever I decide to do. I'll just do it. How would that work? Or holographic characters that come to life, type of thing. That's probably one of the first ones, because that's what the Starship Chimera thing is, which is kind of like cloning, but not really. Without consequences, in a way. Yeah, sort of like that TNG episode with Geordi conjuring a holodeck version of a lady he later meets, but he acts like kind of a jerk around her, like he shouldn't, because it's creepy. But in Silly Shrek, it's not creepy, and they would be friends. Yeah. Yeah. So Chimera, Starship Locations first. There's a couple of other people doing gaming stuff and role playing and LARP that are interested in their own versions. We'll see whether there's crossover appeal for that. There is no official cast yet doing a game that doesn't yet exist. So mainly it'll start with the stories and not the stories, but storybooks, not the actors. Yeah. So yeah, and then going from there. Putting the name back out there, the name that was started the whole thing. Yeah. And so Kal Kat show was off the air. As you know, my review show is still around, and my other channels are still around, and I still do updates. So this is the update channel thing for the update channel, so that's kind of the Starship Locations and everyone else channel. As for news of Distant Destinies Spacebook, yes, that is coming back. All 7 books will be out. First will start out in the rewrite, which I took out the first one, the first prologue. The others will follow after that. There won't be much of a character guide on that, because the character guide that I wrote is very long. There's a lot of characters. I won't put out necessarily character guides for the other stories, like Starcrackers, because they're kind of long and winded, and unless there's a game version. What I would likely do is, when there is a need to do something of that caliber, maybe their Starship Locations umbrella, they can do not a crossover, but they can have the characters generators say, like, okay, these are the basic guys you should know in each book. In general, do something like that, because there's hundreds of them. They're epics. They're huge. They're epic stories. You can't just condense them all. So there would be a fan wiki page written by me, where you will go there and see series and stories and all that stuff. There may also be one on WordPress, and which is as good as the other ones, and free. I like free. And yeah, so let's see stuff over there. You can get, and the online store is not back. I keep talking about the online store, but it's not back. We're working on it. I wanted to get those stories finished in the Cillian universe, flesh that out, mainly for my own edification, to see where everything goes. I got the Starcrackers. They got like a map of my Starcrackers galaxy on the back of them. I don't know if this is quite that big, but there's this back wall in the studio. They have, this is the Starcrackers map. So don't really need to overextend that character story necessarily. I think it works on its own. Um, don't need to make extra stuff that isn't gonna. Sure. Anyway, so yeah, as long as the online blogs work and the story works, there's reason to add extra stuff unless you want to know. Unless there's some interest. Yeah, all those rules of writing and stuff they throw it at you, like show don't tell and whatever. Discussing that, I think I already mentioned kind of that. Yeah, there's a fine line between description and dialogue, and if it's an action scene, you're not going to have much dialogue because people are doing something actiony. And if it's an exploration scene, you wouldn't have much dialogue. It would be exploring. But if it's exploring character and the character development, you would have lots of dialogue and not much action. So you would totally have dialogue there. There's a lot of character building stories about a lot of these guys, the Cillian characters included. And yes, there was supposed to be a 2017, but now 2018, new Silly Trek story. Some of that was woven into the narrative of the TMS stories and Lalanto's story that came later. Some of the other ones because it fit better there, and I've not yet put to pen the typing the story that is where the characters you need to know in the game come together. Haven't worked out yet. So yeah, I wanted to make sure all the other stuff works first because you can't just and the endings of those stories work first because otherwise then there's something really hideous in there that didn't work. So some of it had been put off since January, and now I went back to it and said, okay, this works. Some of that didn't, but this works, and shuffled some things around. Some characters, there was some fretting over a couple of characters that were married or not married, and that had some relevance. and then kind of we decided, you know what? What if this is just a different character? Because this character doesn't act like this person anyway, so she's just someone else. Doesn't matter if she's married or someone else. Ha, good. I know how it works. And it's written like anthologies, so the stories aren't necessarily linear. Anyway, they just follow a narrative, loose narrative, like the original Star Trek and like the original Next Generation, where there's a little bit of character development between the characters in that serial, but it's not serialized as much as Deep Space Nine was, or as much as in Star Trek, or as much as Voyager was loose again. Yeah, loose again, Voyager. It's not going to rip off Star Trek. It's not a Star Trek parody really anymore, but it kind of is a little bit. And then you have Mark's cards. Wonder his real name will be the co-writer on Starcrackers a little bit later in the year, probably around, I don't know, December. Let's say December. Starcrackers, the first book, will be out, available to buy. So you'll be able to get Starcrackers at long last. The legend of that story, Brown and Gear, story, will be out as a book. You'll be able to read the Sphere of Influence novel, which no one has seen. No one. There's a select few that have seen pieces of it, but the whole thing, in-house years ago, the 90s. They haven't even seen it. They will be excited to see it. It'll be out. Yeah, so real names there with many of those books. I think the trick to doing the Lalantos and the TMS stories is pseudonym there too. As well. Because yeah, it really was a collaborative effort on that one, and yeah, collaborative in the sense that yeah, well, it's not a ripoff of someone else's story because it's been completely rewritten, but it was originally like taken from blogs from a website called Bullshito, but it was significantly changed. It has to be over 30-40% transitive, and then it's a parody, and it is So, but now it's got aliens and space critters in the queue and Borg in it, or the board in this case. So now it really is like more like 70% different, and it's like they're not even going to recognize it. They'll be like, "What is this? Is nothing like that other story." Yeah, it's just, the narrative is similar, dialogue is similar, but not in any way that would be considered bad. Um, the, the fictional cult they go after is kind of like COL, but it's not. You know, um, it's so spoofy and parodied that they would it would be best for the COL people if they ever found it to just deny it and say, "Oh, this is completely fiction." Yeah, it's not us. It's fiction made up by this person we don't even know. We don't even recognize him. So yeah, um, clearly wasn't there. Just making it up. Yeah. um, but yeah, part time there. But yeah, that's the gist of and the silly track thing and all that. They initially the silly track thing was changed transitively because we wanted to could not get permission from 2/3 of the original Pine Hill cast to use their names. They didn't want to have their names on some random story that Adam put together. So okay, I'll change the names because yeah. And there was all this other stuff woven in there, like the martial artist stuff, martial sports stuff, was part of all those other stories. That's why the Distant Destinies and Starcracker thing took so long, is we had to either take that out or considerably change it from the original premise. Because you can have space martial arts, but if it literally is the school you used to train at in the 2000s and 1990s and 1980s, that's not good. No, you don't want to do that. Um, it's just odd. But making fun of another school, lovingly, that you went to high school at, that's fine. The Pine Hill Evergreen State thing, college thing, doing the Andover. I was never at Andover. That was a version of Pine Hill after. But that would be the other story. And the name Andover is not like that. Name is it is a name, but in Pine Hill is too. Pine Hill, what does that mean? Evergreen, what does that mean? What's weird is the term evergreen is starting to become like a thing regarding literature. It's not me. I didn't do it. I didn't put that meme out there, but that has become a thing. So when my story pops out, the bots and things that go on the internet see, oh, it's an evergreen. So that'll pop up, and it'll be not their evergreen, but it'll be mine, and they'll look at mine. Of course, that does have its drawbacks. The name, real name on the internet is really common, and so as I use Kal Kat, which isn't common, and Brown, and get like there's a couple of other authors that have the same name, and Adam Brown, and one of them wrote some Don Quixote stuff, and that comes up in the search on Amazon, even though I know nothing about Don Quixote and didn't write about it. And it's not like ripping him off or anything. It's just that I am a different guy. Uh, yeah. So anyway, yeah, that's my update.